The film begins with a young boy named Finn playing video games at home. While his parents and twin sister, Sophie, leave for an event, he's left alone in the house with his older sister, Anna. Moments later, strange things begin to happen in the house. The knives come out of nowhere on the counter, and the gates open by themselves. When Finn goes to check on Anna, he finds her in the room carrying a knife, bleeding profusely from her mouth, and claiming that something is chasing them. She points the knife at Finn and asks him to open his mouth, but he refuses and decides to take the knife from her. Anna immediately grabs Finn and drives away, while a mysterious figure appears behind them. They finally stop on a bridge, where Anna believes that the only way to stop the monster from pursuing them is to jump. She jumps up after that and tries to drag Finn behind her by his ankle. However, Finn does not want to die like this, so he kicks her, causing her to fall to her death. Not long after, Finn's parents show up and the rescuers recover Anna's body. Several years later, Finn is in high school and taking medication to cope with the trauma of Anna's death. When he tells Dr. Steinke about the mysterious figure who showed up the night his sister passed away, she does not believe him. Instead, Dr. Steinke tells him that the incident damaged a part of his brain and hands him some pills. Following this session, Finn goes to school and meets his twin sister, Sophie. Then his best friend, Lena, persuades him to attend a senior party hosted by a guy named Leander. Finn has a crush on Dr. Steinke's daughter, Samira, but he doesn't do anything about it. Therefore, Lena encourages him to make a move on her at the upcoming party. The following evening, Finn sneaks out of his house and attends a party with Lena, while his sister, Sophie, also goes with her boyfriend, Raman. Later, Leander approaches Finn with a vial of medication that will help him relax. He initially hesitates to try it out, but eventually downs the entire bottle. As a result, Finn experiences flashbacks to Anna's death and begins to hallucinate that the entire party is covered in blood. The next morning, Finn wakes up at his home and his parents are angry since he didn't tell them he went to a party. Soon after that, Finn leaves the house and drives to see his grandfather, who's sick. When he reaches the hospital, his grandfather requests that Finn pray for him as he's about to have surgery. Later, Finn is awakened in the middle of the night by a strange noise coming from downstairs. He sees his parents, his sister Sophie, and a few other people seated in the living room while wearing green robes. Just then, an old woman strips off and approaches Sophie, while his father says that Sophie's body is waiting for her. When Finn grabs an axe and creeps around the side of the house, he hears growling noises and is knocked unconscious. As he comes back to his senses, Finn is surrounded by his parents and a doctor, who claims that he was sleepwalking. He tells everyone what he saw before passing out, but everyone, including Sophie, denies it. The next morning, Finn wakes up after hearing some noises coming from Sophie's room again. So he walks in and finds Sophie bleeding from the lips through the frosted glass of her closet door. But as he opens the door, he discovers that she's perfectly fine. Even at school, Finn is concerned about Sophie when he sees her arguing with her boyfriend Raman. He's afraid that whatever happened to Anna will happen to Sophie as well. Later, in gym class, Raman informs Finn that the new medicine she's taking may be the cause of her weird behavior. And while the two are talking, Sophie's nose starts bleeding and she falls from a rope. Immediately after that, Sophie's brought home, where her mother tells her to take a rest. Soon, Sophie moves her mug without even touching it, which scares the life out of Finn. Just then, Raman arrives to see his girlfriend, but Sophie refuses to see him and asks Finn to deal with him. However, Raman refuses to give up and continues to call Sophie's name, but her mother arrives and advises him to give her some space. That night, Finn grabs a baseball bat and watches over Sophie in her sleep, not noticing the shadowy thing beneath her bed. Later, Sophie wakes up and notices her brother, and they argue about his behavior. When Finn returns to his room, he receives a text from Raman stating he and his sister Sophie are in grave danger. He then urges Finn to meet in person at the diner immediately. On the other hand, Raman waits for Finn at the diner while clutching the medication that Finn and Sophie have been taking. He then hears Sophie's voice in the distance and follows it, only to see an old woman lying down on the floor. Suddenly, the old lady opens her eyes and strangles Raman, eventually killing him. By the time Finn arrives, Raman has already been murdered. When Finn turns around, he sees the same mysterious creature he saw the night Anna died and runs away in fear. Soon after, the police arrive and conclude that Raman died due to a drug overdose. Hearing this, Finn tries to inform the police that his friend was murdered and tries to show them their texts, but they've all been mysteriously erased. Afterward, Finn notices a worm inside his medication and informs Lena about it. But when the worm starts growing in size, they present it to his biology teacher. Now, the teacher explains that the worm is extremely rare and normally thrives on dead bodies, so she recommends that they consult an expert named Aliska for more information. Meanwhile, when Lena performs research on the fungi, she discovers that shamans and witches used it as a psychedelic drug during the Middle Ages. They held the belief that these fungi served as portals to the paranormal world. Just then, Finn's crush, Samira, approaches him and claims to use the same pills as prescribed by her mother. Realizing what those pills can do, Finn tells her not to take them, but she ignores his suggestion. Instead, Samira invites him to study biology with her in the afternoon. Later, Finn and Lena go to meet Aliska, who's a fungus expert. Once there, she holds Finn's hand and they experience a vision in which Aliska sees Anna's death. And moments later, the boy coughs up the fungi inside him. Aliska informs them that the pill is extremely hazardous and they must perform a ritual to banish the demon from Sophie before she suffers the same fate as Anna. However, Finn refuses to perform an exorcism on his sister and goes to see his grandfather instead. Soon he reaches the hospital and sees his grandfather about to undergo surgery. When Finn asks him whether he ever came across supernatural occurrences when he was a priest, the old man confirms that he did. In the past, when doctors were unable to help a little kid, their family asked him to execute an exorcism. And while conducting such rituals, people oftentimes witness a powerful entity that changes everything. As he waits for his grandfather's surgery to be finished, Finn feels a strange energy in the hallway. He enters the restricted area and discovers his grandfather lying on the operating table with a swarm of black insects emerging from an abdominal wound. In a state of panic, Finn shatters the glass by pounding on it. Soon, a nurse walks in and pushes him out, but the glass is still intact and his hand is unharmed. Just then, a doctor approaches him and reveals that the surgery went successfully. Realizing the need of some higher power, Finn decides to call Aliska for an exorcism. But when he arrives home, he finds Samira waiting for him. Finn has a lot on his plate and tries to make her leave, but she gets upset at him. Moments later, Lena arrives home, while Aliska and her son make their appearance as well. Then Lena asks Samira to stay quiet and witness the exorcism. But on the other hand, Aliska senses that something's wrong as soon as she enters the house. So, to figure out what exactly is going on, she and her son set up a device that's used to communicate with metaphysical creatures. Next, Aliska takes Finn's medication and tries to summon the demons who torment the family. The creature quickly responds and claims Sophie as its own. Furthermore, it challenges Aliska to a battle and destroys the communication equipment as well. Meanwhile, the shadowy thing appears beside Finn and growls in his ears. Just at that moment, his parents return home and switch on the lights, revealing Aliska's face covered in creature gashes. Then they instantly order Aliska and her son to stop this madness and leave their house. Meanwhile, Finn and the two girls also leave the home and spend the night in an abandoned pool. In the depth of the night, Samira is awakened by a strange sound and tries to wake Finn near her. But to her surprise, she sees Finn coming from the restroom. Realizing that someone is still holding her hand, Samira begins to panic. When she looks down, she notices that something is clutching onto her, and she begins to back away in fear. The three return to Aliska's home once again in the hopes of completing the ritual. However, the landlord reveals that they escaped in the middle of the night as if the devil was chasing them. In the next scene, the trio head to their school to make themselves look less suspicious. Finn goes to the restroom and notices Leander vomiting the same worm he got from the pills. After that, Leander goes to the school's roof and shouts, "Take it out of me," before jumping from the roof. But before dying, Leander alerts Finn and Samira about a mysterious file. The paramedics hurry him to the hospital, and the EMTs remove a bizarre fungus-looking thing from his neck in the ambulance. Meanwhile, Lena grabs a container that has the suspicious triclopyr medicine from Leander. She conducts online research and discovers that it's an experimental medicine with highly negative online reviews. It's said to bring nightmares, anxiety, and even the opening of the gates of hell. She then goes to a presentation by Finn's father's pharmaceutical company, which manufactures the medications that they've all been using. She eventually finds herself in a room full of dying and dead individuals where the fungi are being grown and harvested. Lena recognizes Aliska as one of the bodies in the room and immediately runs away from that place. On the other hand, Finn and Samira investigate the file left by Leander and discover that they've all been adopted, fostered, or just sold to their current families. Suddenly, Leander's father appears and informs Finn that Leander is no longer alive. He also reveals to Finn that his parents are not his biological family. Furthermore, the man reveals that Finn's father was also adopted and was saved by his grandfather when he was a sickly child. And after that, his grandfather founded the Tronthetel Group, which manufactures triclozapam, the mysterious medicine that they've been taking. He also reminds Finn that being a member of this organization is a privilege reserved only for the elites and that they should consider themselves fortunate. After this, Finn and Samira head to see his grandfather, but unfortunately, by the time they arrive, his grandfather has passed away. Just then, a doctor appears from behind him and knocks him out. Sometime later, Finn wakes up tied up to a chair with drugs hooked around him. Samira is also tied up alongside her friend, and her mother, Dr. Steinke, is standing in front of them. She then leads Finn through a hidden doorway in the wall into a basement where his parents, sister, and others are dressed in green robes. Next, his father reveals that Finn must sacrifice his body so that his grandfather's soul might enter it. On the other hand, Finn, who's absolutely distraught, is restrained to a table, has his tongue sliced, and his mouth held open. The grandfather then gets on top of Finn and opens his mouth, allowing the same swarm of black insects to enter. Just then, Lena arrives at the scene and sets everyone with the robes on fire. She then frees Finn from his restraints while being attacked by a doctor. However, Finn manages to stab the doctor and kill him. As they flee the house, Finn turns the gas on and causes the house to blow up. Once they're outside, they find Samira waiting in the car. They notice Sophie inside, who's half burned and speaks in a distorted voice while pleading with Finn not to let her die like Anna. But Finn is not falling for this trap, so he orders Samira to drive and run Sophie over. As they drive away, several bugs appear in the car and they end up crashing in the same area where Anna died. Lena manages to escape, but Samira becomes unconscious. Just before the car explodes, Finn manages to pull her out and save her life. After that, the three of them decide to go to a place where nobody knows them. Just then, the trio notices a billboard of a pharmaceutical firm while their miracle drug hangs above. The film concludes as Samira turns around, revealing her creepy white eyes, indicating that she has been possessed by the demonic creature.